I can't think of a better place to find cryptids than in video game. I mean, gaming is where the fantasy world comes to life, so it only makes sense that it would be packed full of a ton of creepy creatures that have been rumored to exist in real life. In fact, video games have created a ton of new cryptids that now reign supreme in video game lore. For this list, we'll be looking at both kinds, cryptids that were rumored to exist in real life but then implemented into video games, and then of course the ones that are unique to gaming and have now become world famous through gaming. Hello gaming fans, I am of course your host Jade Arena, and for today's list we are going to be counting down the top 10 scary cryptids in video games. As always, I would love it if you guys could like, comment, subscribe, and hit the little notification bell, and stick around until the end of this list because I'm gonna let you guys know what my favorite Pokemon are, because Pokemon are basically cryptids. They're like kind of like same like creatures that you list and all that kind of stuff. And without taking any longer, let's get into this list. Coming in at number 10, we have headcrabs from Half-Life. The Half-Life franchise might seem like an urban legend to some of the younger gamers out there, with some of the vets of gaming life talking about the time when Half-Life came out and then Half-Life 2. The ever-fabled Half-Life 3 is talked about like the second coming of Christ. But with the recently released Half-Life Alyx, there's been a resurgence in the series and fans have been dying for more content taking place in that interesting world, as long as the content is not getting your head chewed off by a headcrab. Headcrabs are a fairly low-level enemy in the Half-Life universe, just walking around the ground like rats, but they will give you a scare when they leap for your face and try to gnaw your head off. They are interdimensional parasites that have one thing that they want to do. Similar to the facehuggers from Alien, they want to implant themselves on your head and use your body as a vessel for a more sinister creature. If a headcrab is able to chew its way into your cranium, it will take over your body and turn you into a zombie-like state. The headcrab does this by using its powerful beak to smash open your skull and then take control of your brain. That sounds horrible. Your body will then mutate, and then at this point you're pretty much done for. Coming in at number 9, we have Bigfoot from Grand Theft Auto 5. This has to be one of my favorites of all time. I love the idea of a big ape man running around in the woods, and he has become the best at hide and seek. But we all know about the big hairy missing link, but where has he popped up in video games? Well, actually this beast has been seen a ton of times throughout games, but one of the most interesting has to be when he was in Grand Theft Auto 5. You find a crazy dude out there in the woods and he sends you on a mission to find some Sasquatch poop, and then you chase down a Squatch. The mission has you running all throughout the woods trying to find out where this Squatch has gone. You catch a glimpse of him, but eventually you corner him and shoot him down. Like, sounds kind of sad. And then it turns out that the Bigfoot can talk and that he's just some guy in a suit who's been doing this whole thing for a weird kink. Never doubt Grand Theft Auto's ability to make a sexual joke out of anything. Coming in at number 8, we have El Chupacabra in Red Dead Redemption Undead Nightmare. This is one of the most fun DLCs of all time. Red Dead Undead Nightmare not only infests the world with endless hordes of zombies, but also brings in a host of other supernatural beings, one of which is El Chupacabra. You find this little rascal running around in the world, and if you can chase him down, then you can take him out. What an amazing trophy to throw up on your wall. Coming in at number 7, we have the unicorn from Red Dead Redemption Undead Nightmare. I think it might just be called Red Dead Undead Nightmare. I don't know, that's for the fans to decide, and rip me up in the comments. I figured we could revisit this one back to back because there are a ton of cryptids in this standalone DLC. Now, the unicorn itself isn't the scariest thing in the world. I mean, it leaves behind a rainbow trail as you ride it. What could be more wholesome than that? But if you want the game to unveil this creature to you, you're going to have to set out on a biblical journey, and you will have to tame each one of the 4 horses of the apocalypse. Not only does each one of these horses come with its own special ability, they are by far the hardest horses to break in the entire game, which makes sense, they are the 4 horses of the apocalypse. But if you are able to do this, it will be worth it. Nothing makes you feel prettier than riding up to a party on a single horned horse with a rainbow fart. We have cherubs from Doom 3. It's like they just wanted to make something that would stain your brain with horror for as long as you walked the earth. The cherubs are disgusting in every single way. Doom 3 was when the people at id decided that they were going to change the Doom franchise into something with more of a survival horror feel. And even though the game was good, I'm happy to see them return to the fast-paced insanity that has been the last 2 installments of the Doom franchise. But while there was a short tonal shift, they managed to crank out some horrific looking creatures. Cherubs are what you get when you have a baby's head and torso, you replace the legs with a slug's tail, you give it claws for hands, and then slap some fly wings onto the back, because the only thing that could make this thing more terrifying would be if it could fly. Coming in at number 5, we have Mothman from Fallout 76. Some of you out there may not want to talk about Fallout 76 because it's a little bit of a sore spot for you. Maybe you spent a bunch of money on that game, and when it came out, it was a massive flop and could barely run. But apparently, now the game is pretty good. Not that I've played it at all, but that's what I've heard from other sources, that Bethesda has been offering some pretty good updates to make sure the game is running better, and they've been including a lot of new content. Some of that content was Mothman. You can now run around the Fallout wasteland and run into the mythical winged beast that looks closer to just a giant moth than a man crossed with a moth, but it's just as deadly. It'll probably kill you. It moves extremely fast and it will shoot what seems to be some sort of saliva projectile at you. It's got a pretty big health pool, so bring some friends because you're gonna need a crew if you want to take this thing down, unless it glitches out on you, like one video I watched where a dude single-handedly kills it because it never moves. It just stays in like this glitched out ball and he just kills it super easily, but such is the world of Fallout 76. Coming in at number 4, we have Mewtwo from Pokemon, one of the most powerful Pokemon who has ever existed and might be the smartest as well. Not to mention, it seems that Mewtwo holds a pretty justified grudge against humanity for being treated like a lab rat for an extremely long period of time. But we all know that Mewtwo brings with it a powerhouse of psychic abilities, and some of the later generations of Pokemon games have seemed to make Mewtwo transform into an even more powerful form with Mega Mewtwo. And Mewtwo is such a staple of the Pokemon franchise that he was given not one but 2 different Mega versions. We have Mega Mewtwo X and Mega Mewtwo Y. One version gives him a significant speed increase, while the other version makes him more of a damage threat. All of this is tied into the Pokemon's outstanding IQ. I would have to say that this is a cryptid that you definitely should be afraid of. Coming in at number 3, we have Clickers from The Last of Us. The Last of Us really sends home how horrible it would be to live in their world. There is rarely anything happy taking place, and even when you get a short glimpse of something bright, it's stripped away from you faster than that amazing dream you were having when your alarm clock goes off. And one of the most horrible things that happens in this dark, twisted world is the fungal infection that spreads through the world like wildfire. If you are unfortunate enough to have this infection wreak havoc on your body, then you will soon become a mindless creature that only craves violence and attacks everything in sight. If the infection worsens, you will change from a runner to the more advanced stage where the fungal parasite has now worked its way out of your head and you look like the cover of a heavy metal album. Your zombified self would be blind and require clicking noises to navigate the world via echolocation. And if the infection gets even worse, you might enter the rare stage of bloater, the zombified mushroom tank that can tear a human's head clean off its body. Coming in at number 2, we have Plaga from Resident Evil. There are plenty of parasites in the Resident Evil universe, and they are used mainly for one reason: to try and make the host of the parasite more powerful through disgusting mutations. Well, I don't know if the disgusting mutation aspect is always part of the plan, but it always happens. The Plaga parasite is shown in full effect in Resident Evil 4. There is an entire village of culty farmers who have the parasite living in their chest. Every now and again, when you pop their head with a bullet, the parasite will pop out and say hello as a massive bladed tentacle spew out of their neck hole and attempt to slice your face like a pizza fresh out of the oven. But not everyone has the unfortunate fate of becoming Pinata Head. Some people, like your thought-to-be-dead former comrade Jack Krauser, have used the parasite to give them superhuman abilities, as he shows by transforming his arm into a mutated horror that would see him arm wrestling champion of the world. Coming in at number 1, we have the monstrosity of Sin. Okay, so probably the most horrifying thing you will ever see in a game. It seems that the creators of Doom weren't the only ones who wanted to use a baby as the foundation for making an image that would cause you 40 years worth of night terrors in one moment. This monstrosity is pulled right out of Dark Souls 3, and the monstrosity of Sin is basically a massive baby's body. They replace the head with a giant hand, and the whole body is covered with like sacks of pus. This horror show rolls around like a baby, smashing its entire being into you, and it does a ton of damage. Running into a room full of these makes you want to run your character out of the nearest window and then set your console on fire for betraying your trust. Alright everyone, that is all I have for you for today's list, and I hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the strange world of cryptids that are roaming around video games. The only thing is I hope these all stay in the video game world and don't come into ours, because I have enough to stress about as is. But as promised guys, I'm going to give you my picks for my favorite Pokemon. These are just my personal favorites, they're not necessarily like the most powerful or anything. First up I have to say Gengar. The creepy smile that this dude brings to the table is amazing. I love how powerful of a ghost Pokemon he is. Next we have to say Blastoise. When I was a kid, first playing Pokemon, I would always pick Squirtle because I wanted him to grow into Blastoise so I could have a Blastoise on my roster. And my final pick, and by far my most favorite of all Pokemon, has to be Gyarados. He's angry, he's a water type, he has dragon type moves, he evolves from one of the worst Pokemon of all time. I just love him so much. Alright everyone, that has been our list. As always, I would love it if you could like, comment, subscribe, and hit the little notification bell. Until next time, I hope you guys enjoyed this nerdy content and keep watching this nerdy content. Bye. The Plaga Parasite is showed. The Plaga is showcased. The Plaga Parasite